In this video, we're going to be using the matplotlib library within Microsoft Fabric and PySpark to create bar, line, and pie charts. Hello, I'm here within a Microsoft Fabric notebook, and I'm going to create a data frame using spark.read.table, and I'm also going to display it by saying display and then in brackets or parentheses the name of the data frame. So not only do we have our data frame as a table, we can also have it as a chart, and we can customize the chart. In addition, we can also use describe. So if I say dfActual.describe actual total, for example, .show open bracket, close bracket, then that shows us the count, mean, standard deviation, minimum, and maximum. So that is another way of profiling data. But suppose you wanted to use something a bit more graphical and under your control. Well, you can use a plotting library like matplotlib. So if I create another cell, I can import matplotlib.pyplot, and I'm going to call it plt as the alias. Now, what we need for matplotlib is not a Spark data frame, but a Panda data frame, as matplotlib doesn't support Spark data frames. So I would say my data frame for Panda equals my data frame for Spark dot to pandas, plural, open bracket, close bracket. So that's all you need to do to create a Panda data frame. And it is this that we can now use. So let's create a bar chart based on country and actual total. So I say my alias for matplotlib, so plt, plot, .bar, open bracket. So first of all, I want my x-axis. So that is dfPanda.Country. So the x-axis running across the bottom, the y-axis will run up. So that's going to be my figures. So dfPanda.ActualTotal. Plot ready, I can show it. Plot.show, open bracket, close bracket. So let's run that and see what we get. And here we can see our initial chart. So we've got France, Italy, and England, and 0 going up to around 25,000 or so. Now let's alter this graph. Let's add a color. So within the brackets, I'm going to say color equals, well, let's make it green. So I will use the letter G within quotation marks. And here we can see the result. So I can use B, G, and R for blue, green, red. C, M, Y for cyan, magenta, and yellow. It's not really a great yellow for me. It's more of a greenish yellow. K and W stand for black and white. So it's the last letter for black. Otherwise, you'd be mixing it up with blue. Now, you can also use CSS colors, such as red or dark salmon. And you can also use the word yellow, which for me is a much truer yellow than just using the letter Y. To see all of the CSS colors that you can use, please go to this web address, which is in the notes. So here we can see the single letter ones, and here we can see the CSS colors as well. Now let's add some axis labels. So I want a label for the x-axis, so plt.xlabel, so I'll call that country, and plt.ylabel equals total. I also want a title, so I can say plt.title. So let's have the title country and totals. So if I run this now, here we can see our two labels and our title. Now the last thing I want to do is control how big my graph is. So I will say plt.figure, open bracket, figsize equals, and then I can put in brackets the size in inches. So an inch is around 2.5 centimeters. So this will create it to 8 inches by 8 inches, or around 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. So there is my resulting chart. A bit big maybe, so I'll say let's have 6 inches, that's around 15 centimeters, or maybe 4 inches, that's around 10 centimeters. So there's a lot more we can do with bar charts, but I don't want to overcomplicate what we've got here. So in this video, we've had a look at how we can create a bar chart. We can import matplotlib.pyplot, give it an alias, and then convert our existing data frame to a panda data frame by saying .toPandas, open bracket, close bracket, and then we can use this alias to say how big our chart be by using .figure, open bracket, figsize, by plotting our bar chart with x, y values and a color, adding axis labels by using xlabel and ylabel, a title using title, and then we display it by saying .show, open bracket, close bracket. In this video, we're going to convert our bar chart into a pie chart. So I'll copy what I've got currently into a new cell, and I'm going to get rid of the X and Y axis as that doesn't make sense for a pie chart. So I'm going to change plt.bar to plt.py. So we need as the first parameter the values. So I'm going to say actual total. So let's just leave it as that and create our pie chart. And here we can see our pie chart. Now it doesn't contain any of the labels France, Italy or England. So let's add that. So I'm going to say within .py, comma, labels equals our data frame, and in this case, .country. So let's run that. And here we can see France, England and Italy. Now it's starting on the x-axis. A lot of pie charts normally start at the top. So if I wanted that, then I'll put in start angle equals. So this is in degrees and is counterclockwise. So if I wanted to start at the top, then I would be rotating 90 degrees. So let's run that. And now we can see our pie chart starts at the top. Let's have some numbers in here to show the percentage. Now let's add some labels inside here. And I want the percentage. So I will say auto PCT equals, and in quotation marks, %.1f %%. So this first percent says what is going to follow is a format specifier. I'm going to specify a format. The .1f says I want the figures to be to one decimal place. I could use .0f or .2f. And then I want a percentage sign at the end. But we've already seen that the percentage sign is saying something special. So to actually give a percentage sign, I've got to say a percentage sign to say what's coming up is something special, and then I can use a normal percentage sign. So technically this is called an escape character, but you don't need to worry too much about that. Just know that if you're seeing something like this, I'm saying that I want the value here to be shown to one decimal place. So next, I want some different colors. So I will say colors equals plt dot, and I'm going to use a color map, cm dot. So the color map I'm going to choose is pastel 1, and then dot colors. So if we have a look at that, we can see we have got different colors. Now there are various color maps to choose from. So if I go to this webpage and go to the qualitative color maps, here we can see we've got pastel 1 and 2, paired, accent, dark 2, set 1, 2, 3, tab 10 and tab 20, B and C. So the tab 10 and tab 20, they have 10 and 20 different colors. And then finally for this video, I'm going to add a legend. So I will say plt.legend, open bracket, close bracket. Let's make this figure a bit bigger so we could have legends in more easily. And here we can see the legend of France, Italy and England. Now in the brackets for the legend, we can give it a title. So we can say countries, for instance. We can give it a color. So I can say label color equals blue, for instance. So now all of these countries are in blue. Do I not like where it is? Well, I can change the location by saying loc for location equals. So the default is best. So this puts it in a place with the minimum overlap of all of the other visuals. However, I could say I want it to be upper left or lower left, center left, same for the right, or I could say lower center or upper center, or I could just say center. But I'm going to keep it as best. And then finally, I can change the font size. So if I say font size equals, I can give it a font size number, or I can say small, medium, or large, or X large, or XX large, and the same for small, XX small, and X small. So I'm going to say medium. And here we can see our legend with a minimum size. Maybe change that to large just to see how much larger it becomes. In this video, we've had a look at how we can create a pie chart using matplotlib. So we say .py and give it the values. We can also give it labels. We can add in the percentages using AutoPTC, give it a start angle, and say what colors to use. We can also add in a legend with a title, label color, location, and font size. In this video, we're going to have a look at creating a line chart. Now, we're going to use a slightly more complex dataset. So in the previous section, we were creating a bridge table. So we're going to be using the same code that we used earlier for this. So here is our bridge table, which is joined together with the actual and the target. So this gives us 4 countries and a total for actual and a total for target. So now let's use this data frame in a line chart. So first of all, I'm going to re-import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. And then I'm going to convert our existing data frame into a panda data frame. So dfPanda equals dfBridge, and all of this joins dot to pandas, open bracket, close bracket. So let's just run that code and make sure that it works. And you can see it's worked. So next, I'm going to create my line chart. So I'll concentrate on the actual to start with. So I will say plt.plot, and I'm going to have the df.Panda.Country, so that's running across the x-axis, and then dfPanda.ActualTotal running up the y-axis. So let's now display this at the end. So plt.show, open bracket, close bracket, and here we can see our line chart. Now you'll notice that this excludes Germany, which has a null value. Now suppose I want to include the target total as well. So I would say exactly the same thing, same x-axis, but this time I would have the target total. So notice I'm using exactly the same terminology. I'm just adding a second line using a second dot plot. Now we can't see from here the France figure. France figure it seems to be missing. That's because there is no line from France to Italy and Italy to England. So for that, we will need a marker. So I will say for the first one, marker equals O, and for the second one, marker equals S. So let's run that, and then we can see all of these markers. So what does O and S mean? Well, if I go back to the matplotlib.org, you can see that O gives me a circle and S gives me a square. And there are all of these other markers that you can see on screen. They are also included in the notes to this course. So what next? Well, let's say I wanted labels. So we'll add a label for the actual and a label for the target. So now we've got these labels, it would be helpful if we added a legend. So we can actually see these labels. So there we are. Now let's change the color. So I'm going to say color equals B, blue, and color equals G, let's say. And then we can vary the width of the line using line width. So suppose I wanted a thicker line, well, I could say line width equals 4, but maybe I didn't want any line and I just wanted the markers. Well, I could say line width equals 0. So here we just have our markers, because there's really no progression like in a year. If we went from 2025 to 2026 to 2027, that might have a progression. There's really no progression between France, Italy, and England to warrant a line being shown between them. All I want for this particular example are the markers. Now let's add axis labels. So what command do we need there? Well, I can use .xlabel and .ylabel. And suppose I wanted something running across the top. I would use .title, so country and totals. So let's have a look at this. Now, one of the differences between a bar chart and a line chart is that the y-axis for a line chart doesn't necessarily need to start at 0, as you can see in this case. So let's force it to start at 0, because I think it's a bit misleading in this particular example. So I will say .ylim, so the limit of y, bottom equals 0. So you can also say what the top is going to be as well, if you want it to be from 0 to 30,000, for instance. So now we can see that the bottom of this line chart is indeed at 0. So in this video, we've had a look at how we can create a line chart. So we use .plot, and we can use multiple .plot for multiple lines. We can also specify a marker, a label, the color, and the line width. And we can also adjust the minimum and maximum values for the y-axis by using .ylim. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then why not give it a like and subscribe and click that bell. That way you'll be notified of any new videos. Now, this course was taken from our Microsoft Fabric course. If you would like to learn PySpark within Microsoft Fabric and also SQL and KQL, then please go to our website, idodata.com. If you go to Fabric, DP700 Fabric Data Engineer Associate, you'll see that you will be able to learn PySpark, SQL and KQL to query batch and streaming data, together with using data pipelines, data flows and much more. Now, if you want to know more about the DP700, then please click on the video on the end screen. I'm Philip Burton of idodata.com. Thanks for watching and keep learning.